Solutions, a relatively new company that's going to do a presentation. And we're going to learn all about judgments. And then after that, we'll get into some other stuff. So if Katie's ready to go, she's first up.
Great.
Share her screen, and I think her mic is on and she's set.
Wonderful. Okay, there we go. All right, thanks a lot, Carl. So I'm Katie Borchers. I am the owner of Beyond Green Solutions. We are a collection agency located in Webster, New York. And I always like to start off to tell people a little bit about my background. I used to be a staff nurse. I worked in inpatient pediatrics at the U of R for about 6 years, and then spent 12 years on the electronic health record. And I did what every nurse decided to do when she wants to leave healthcare. I started a collection agency, which is pretty uncommon. Believe it or not, in the last 3 years across the United States, I am the only newly started collection agency that is a member of the ACA, which is the National Debt Collection Association. And I am the only one that is a staff nurse that is a member. And I actually am still a practicing nurse. I substitute at my kids' school. So I'm going to talk a little bit about collections and judgments and how they can go together, and how a team like mine, a process like mine, can help you through if you have a judgment, and then maybe if you don't have a judgment. So I don't ever think that I'm the expert of why people don't pay. It really doesn't matter to me. The fact is they haven't paid, and the people they owe money to need help. And it's not my job to judge either party. It's my job to mediate in the middle and act on behalf of that person who is owed money from that debtor. So we're going to talk a little bit about judgments. It's something Carl asked me to speak about tonight. And I think everybody pretty much knows what a judgment is. It's a legal document that shows somebody owes you money. It is typically good for 20 years. And so when you think about a world of statute of limitations, a judgment really allows you a much longer clock and a much greater opportunity. All right. There are some changes in the law that happened last year that I just wanted to call out with that reduction in interest rate. And I'm guessing many of you, especially those online, know more about judgments than I do. But what I know how to do is to help you through a judgment, right? Because once a judgment is there, you still have to collect the money, right? So what are your options? You need to find someone who is able to enforce that judgment. That means finding that person. It means spending time and effort getting in contact with them. It may mean some additional tools like reporting to a credit bureau, or seizing assets, or garnishing wages. But regardless, that judgment isn't just money in the bank as soon as you get it into your hands. And so I'm really here to talk about is, can collections help? My collection agency works on a contingency rate. And what that really means is when we collect money from your judgment, then you pay us our cut. And so when you think about that process you've gone through, right? Somebody hasn't paid for quite some time, enough for you to get angry and do something about it. Now you finally have this piece of paper in your hand and you still don't have money. Are you really wanting and willing to front more money up to get to the next leg in that journey of collecting? And if you're not, if you're looking for some sort of help that doesn't front those costs, collections can be one of those helps, especially a collection agency that does contingency collections. That means you don't pay us our cut until we collect. Okay, but what if you don't have a judgment? Because I got to tell you, I hear a lot of times from the people that I work with that have property management and people that don't pay them, judgments are difficult to come by these days in this area. But you still have people who owe you money, and you can prove that there was an agreement where money has needed to be collected. And so a collection agency can still help with those efforts. Actually, a lot of times I tell people, come to us first. We are a much softer solution, but also a much less time-intense solution than going through that judgment process. And so we can send validation demand letters. We can make phone calls. We can get people into payment programs. We can utilize a third-party debt collection agency practice before you go for a judgment, or God forbid, if you can't get a judgment. All right. All we require is something that shows proof of a contract and an exchange of services where that money is owed, as well as the latest statement on where that is. So let's say You have an agreement, a terms of agreement to lease or rent a property. You have something that shows what the monthly payment is, and you can show me through your bookkeeping that they haven't paid in 6 months, 12 months, whatever it is. We can use all of that, as well as any information that you did in their credit application, to really pull together a file to reach out to them and start trying to collect as a third-party collection agency. All right. And so why would you do this instead of some of your other options? You have a lot of tools at your fingertips. I always say that collection really comes down to that cost benefit analysis. Are you going to spend time going to get a judgment? Are you going to spend the money to go and get that judgment? Is there a likelihood that you are even going to obtain one? And if not, can we get started beforehand and start working through that process to recoup your money? Any questions on that? So my team is truly a third-party debt collection agency. We can help with business and consumer debt. We help many different industries, but we really fall underneath the FDCPA federally regulated rules of third-party debt collection. A lot of people think about collections and they think about people buying, selling debt. They think about student loan, credit card debt, default and mortgage. A lot of times they don't understand or think about a debt collection agency in the realm that I work. And that realm is with small businesses, medium-sized businesses, people that have anywhere between $20,000 and $200,000 in receivables that they need assistance with. And so what I really focus on, one of the things that I feel differentiates Beyond Green Solutions from others, is because we're not only focusing on collecting that debt, we're focusing on preventing it from even happening. And so I spend a lot of time educating people on what it means to do prevention and how you can protect your assets, protect your services, and not only protection, but provide additional incentives that help people to think twice before they choose to put their money elsewhere and not towards you. And so that really talks in the realms of documentation, right? I review a lot of contracts. I need them every time I bring someone on. And you would be surprised how many contracts that I see that are not fully executed. They have a signature, but it's not obvious who that person who signed it was because there's no print or notation down below. I want to reach out to people with emails and texts. I want all the tools that are at my fingertips, but there hasn't been a consent for that. Or maybe there were many people at the signing of that contract that would be really good third parties for me to reach out to, but nobody took documentation of maybe a parent or a significant other that was there and had available documentation. Also additional incentives. Late fees, annual interest. These may be things that you have seen before and that you already use, but I find not everybody does. The more pressure and incentives that you can let people know who owe you money, that you should be top of mind, that if they have so much money that they have to divide across, that you are the one that should be first, the more leverage that you're going to create to keep that missed payment from happening to you. All right. And then just some other additional conversations. I find when I review contracts, a lot of times they say things about the legal fees, right? The legal fees will be incurred by the debtor. They miss that sentence of cost of collections. So if somebody owes you $10,000 and you come to me for help, you're going to be paying my contingency fee out of that $10,000 that I can collect. If you have something like this, something that says the cost of collections is incurred by the debtor, I can go for more than $10,000. And you can remain whole or close to being whole when I try to recoup that money. And not only does that help you when or if you need somebody like me, it actually provides additional incentives for somebody to not let it get that far, right? Like, well, I have a collection agency that I work with, and she's going to charge me 40% to collect from you. You're the one who's going to have to pay that additional money because you still owe me the $10,000 plus her fees. All right. So thinking about how your contracts can not only be airtight so that they hold up, but that they put additional pressure and incentive and they protect you in the long run. And I cannot put enough consideration on additional information. I always put that there because I don't want to forget to say, hands down, that is the biggest problem my clients face, is they have to give up some of their money for me to do that work. Okay, so what are some of the other solutions that you can do to follow up on past dues? Constant and consistent communication is a must. I talk to a lot of people that have, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 months worth of past dues. And I asked them the last time they reached out to that person to let them know they owed them money. It's been months. If you're not staying top of mind, they're going to go elsewhere. If you don't put on consistent and constant pressure, they are going to move towards the squeaky wheel and you're not it. But that's time consuming. And a lot of times people turn to me, not because they didn't know that, it's because there's just something else that took their time away, or frankly, something that they do better than making those phone calls. Or they're really frustrated and angry and they know that they shouldn't pick up the phone and make them. Being upfront about next steps, we talked a little bit about this, but the more that you can tell people beforehand what will happen if they don't pay, the better your chances are of getting them to pay, because they don't want to go through that pain later. Handing it off if you're not getting a response as soon as possible. Studies show that the longer you wait, the lesser your chances are. As a matter of fact, at about 60 days post-due, studies show that you're looking at about 73 cents on the dollar on average for recouping past dues. At 1 year, statistics go down to 25 cents on the dollar. Time is money, pressure's important, incentives create urgency. And then good communication. These are difficult conversations. Nobody wants to pick up the phone and ask somebody for money that they're angry with, or that they're, you get that like shaky feeling before you have a difficult conversation. I train a lot of other professionals outside of property management, specifically in healthcare, in skilled trades. How can their technicians, how can their front desk clerks, when they check in a patient, ask for money in a succinct way with confidence that will move the conversation towards the ultimate resolution, which is they pay the money that they owe. And a lot of times I find that that is what is lacking most. It's not that people don't want the money. It's not that people don't believe they deserve to ask for the money, but they just don't have enough training on how to do it correctly. And those conversations go sour. And so I think, if you ever want to hear, I do anywhere from an hour to 2 hours of presentations, a lot of times for education credits to those other industries, because they need their staff to learn how to be better at asking for money. I just did a presentation 2 weeks ago to the New York State Veterinary Medical Society. We had about 45 people on a Zoom, and that's what they were most interested in. Teach us how to ask for money with confidence. So just to reiterate, right? When do you need to escalate? When you've had enough, right? Too much time has passed. You're frustrated, you can't keep up with the communication, or maybe you have tried and nobody's getting back to you. You have become a white noise. And for those of you who have children, I've got 3 kids, so they're in the background going, mama, 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 and you start to tune them out, right? Because they're driving you crazy. Well, somebody's tuned you out. Your voice, your business's name, your letterhead on a late notice, doing the same again and again and again with the same result is not going to get you the product and the answer that you want. You need to move up the steps in escalation. And right? When you've made phone calls for 2-3 weeks and you're getting ghosted, that it's time to do that. So what can I do? What can my team do for you? Well, we focus on recouping past dues, right? We follow third-party debt collection practices, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means in a second. But we do more than that. We believe in a holistic approach to supporting our clients and their consumers. So we want to help you prevent it. How can we set you up so that you have less and less past dues over time? And then how can we find areas of improvement and a return on investment? I spend a lot of time looking at contracts and giving suggestions. I spend a lot of time looking at collection efforts that are done internally and saying, wow, your team's doing a really great job. They made 4 phone calls, sent out 3 letters, and they collected $100. Did you ever consider if it's worth the time and effort for how much that's costing you to get that $100? Or maybe the 100 you didn't even get at all. And it's like an eye-opening, right? Because people are so proud of their efforts, they start to lose that cost analysis. Doesn't matter how good you are, you have to do better than what you're making to do that work. I just brought on a divorce and family court attorney last week as a new client. He started his business 3 years ago, and he was busy as can be. So busy that he stopped sending out invoices and late invoices. And then he realized, oh my gosh, I'm growing so fast, I need to bring on more team members. Now he's got more business, and he realizes that he's got thousands of dollars in past due receivables. So he hired a guy who said he could help him. And the guy started to do all of those things that he no longer had time to do, and it still wasn't yielding the results. And I had a great conversation with him last week. And I said, your new guy is nice, but he's not an expert. He didn't come from debt collection. He didn't come from those difficult conversations, and he's just more white noise. And he didn't understand that until I talked to him about doing the same thing with the same result isn't going to get you what you need. And he just handed over, I think we got the file this afternoon. He's looking at about $100,000 in past dues. So great business, nice guy, hard work, started a business right before the pandemic, but things grew so quickly, it's out of control. As a matter of fact, out of control is generally about 10 to 15% of your receivables are in the past due. Past due is usually 60 to 90 days. So as soon as you start seeing that growing, you know there's a concern and it's getting out of control. So what are the things that we help with? Other than the fact that we truly do third-party debt collection, we can take away that personal frustration. We can take you away from doing the things that maybe you don't prefer to do, or frankly, maybe you're just not good at doing. That's not your skill set or your staff's skill set. We can give you more time in your day, in your team's day. We can take away tasks that people don't prefer to do to keep your employees happy and retained. We can fill those gaps in staff shortages. I brought new clients on before that lost the person who does the billing, who made those phone calls, and they talked about hiring somebody new. And then they realized, well, hey, my team, our commission rate is probably going to be less than hiring, onboarding and training, paying for salary, paying for benefits, paying all that administrative overhead, paying for that space that that person occupies. I'm not saying it's always the right answer. I'm saying it's worth considering. So what's third-party debt collection look like? If you want to see what's hidden behind the curtain, it means sending a validation notice. As a matter of fact, the federal government just told us back in November exactly what needs to go on that validation notice. So if you're sitting here going, oh, Katie, I already have a collection agency, I believe in what you're saying, my suggestion to you is to go back and ask them, Katie said something about Regulation F back in November. Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing with Reg F? Because if you're not following federal regulations, you are setting yourself up for a lawsuit. At least I'm being set up for a lawsuit if I don't. So validation notice, waiting the overshadowing period of about 35 to 40 days. That's time to open the mail, and then 30 days to think about that letter they received. If they call me in the meantime, I'll take some money. But if not, we begin making phone calls at 35 to 40 days. Our team generally makes about 2 phone calls a week. Something else to ask your collection agency or the person who's handling your judgments, handling your past dues, how much communication are you putting into my past dues? Now, if you have $500,000 in past dues, I'm sure many of you do in this room and on the call, your collection agency is probably working it like crazy because you've got a lot of money sitting on the table for them to earn. But if you've got less than 100,000, maybe you only gave them 50,000, you're probably not top of mind for that collection agency, especially the big ones out there. The collection world is changing, just like everybody else's world. Over time, there are less and less collection agencies, and we are not doing less and less collections. They are getting bigger, and they're buying up these small mom and pop shops and becoming monstrous conglomerates, which makes it easier for them to deal with the regulations, makes them easier to get clients across the globe. What it doesn't make it easier for them to do is to help somebody that sits in that small to medium-sized business world, that less than 200,000 in their portfolio of past dues. And when I started my collection agency a year and a half ago, that's the gap that I found. Remember, I was the only collection agency that was started the year that I began, because nobody starts a collection agency anymore. They just buy and get bigger and bigger. And so the bigger they get, the bigger their clients need to be. And the rest of us that fall into that small hometown local business get left in the dust with using collections as an option. Okay, so if I haven't convinced you yet why debt collection can work for you, I always say there is no sense of when you're upset with your kid's teacher that you jump to, the administrator, the, superintendent of schools, right? You're going to move up the ladder of conversation, right? First you go to the teacher, then maybe you go to the vice principal or principal, and then maybe you go up to the superintendent or somebody above that. The same thing happens with applying pressure for people to pay you money. What's the next step when you are struggling? Well, I say go to a debt collection agency, right? Don't waste your time and money with lawsuits or legal fees or, small claims court, whatever it is that's in your toolkit. Let us get started. We can help move through that increasing incentive and pressure to get someone to pay. And if we get them to pay down here at the low pressure, hey, that's great. We all win. You don't have to be the bad guy. And if we have to put on pressure, because truly some people are criminals, we'll do that together, or you'll do that without me. We find that for the clients that we have, most people are not criminals. Most people fall into one of two categories. They can't pay and they're frozen. They're paralyzed. They don't know what to do, and they're not willing to engage in a conversation with you for whatever reason, right? Embarrassment, anger, fear, and they just need that next level of pressure to open up the lines of communication. All right. My team is empathetic. We don't harass people. We're not supposed to anyway. We like to say that we're the softer approach. We want to give people the opportunity to tell their story. And then once they do, once they get it off their chest, then they're willing to collaborate. Then they're willing to let us mediate. And then they're willing to ultimately resolve their debt. The other group, the ones that aren't paralyzed, they are going a mile a minute. They've got way too many things in their lap. And it's not that they don't know they owe you. If you kind of nailed them down and asked them, they would probably go, yeah, I'm behind on that. It's that you're not the highest, biggest burning fire for them. And until you move yourself up that ladder of importance by giving them a little bit more pressure and incentive, they're just ignoring you. And then suddenly it's time to make that phone call because you can't be ignored anymore, because you're no longer your letterhead, you're my letterhead. You're no longer the property manager or the owner, you're a debt collection agency. And I know we all kind of make jokes about who I am and what I do, but debt collection agencies are feared because we have tools in our tool belt to help people get money back. I put the slide in everything. No account is too small or too large. We have $50 healthcare copays. We have thousands of dollars in outstanding rent, judgments, and other different services. We are commission-based, which means we only get paid when we do the job we said we were going to do. We're a team in Webster, New York. I don't generally give out my address. If you looked me up on the website, you would see a P.O. box. As a matter of fact, I have people that network with me and they show up to the Penfield post office and they're like, hey, where's your office? But we are in the Webster Woods Plaza. I've got a small office. I've got a team of about 7 people, and all we do is debt collection. All we service is small to medium-sized businesses.
Including pre-judgment collection.
You got it. Pre-judgment. As a matter of fact, my property management portfolio right now is half and half. Half true judgments that we're working on, some of them a little bit older, and then the other half are just, hey, I don't have a judgment. This person owes me money and I can prove it. And then all of my other clients, they don't have any sort of legal document that says that person owes them money other than a contract. I've got funeral homes, I've got plumbers, contractors, accountants, bookkeepers, professional, skilled trades. I've got a lot of healthcare, behavioral health, nonprofits. I'm all over the place. But the same thing is true across all those clients. They want that hometown shop local, New York state of mind feeling. They want somebody who picks up the phone. They want to know that the people who are doing the work that I am claiming they do sit outside my office, which they do. I don't sell my debt. I don't farm it off. I'm not a call agency out of state. It's me and my team in Webster doing the work. And whether people that we meet with are in Texas or New York State, they like to know that they still have control. You call me, we'll talk about it. You want to have communication? Sometimes we communicate once a week, anywhere up to once a month. We remit on a monthly basis. So anytime we're bringing it in, you're going to see it fairly soon. And you're the one who gets to make the decisions. The only thing that I recommend and can insist upon is that you are consistent. If you're going to do it at 6 months for this person, you're going to do it at 6 months for that person. If you're going to take an 80% payout from this person, you're going to take an 80% out from that person, because that's where we're all protected, is when you are consistent. But it's your choice, not mine. Yes.
Is this for tenants who are no longer our tenants, correct? Because otherwise, how would we be getting you every month? The new rent comes in, and for a lot of us that have software, our tenants pay through their software. So how does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually have both. I have some people who have been evicted and moved out and there was no judgment. I have some people who have not had to go through the eviction process, actually left, but still didn't pay. And I have some people that still have current tenants. Current tenants is tough. I mean, they're there still sitting in your property, not paying rent, and you don't have a lot of options. And we will just shore it up on a monthly basis. Hey, are they still there? Okay, great. We're going to send out the next past due. We will have to figure out a way to communicate on who's communicating. And generally that means we take over that system of records. You're going to take it off your book and you're going to put it on my book so that I'm sending the communication. Because if we're both sending it, it gets a little bit confusing.
There's no legality behind putting a current tenant into a collection agent.
If you have a contract that is signed for somebody that owes you money, then you absolutely can ask for a collection agency to help you. I have some other businesses. I'm not, like my accounting and my bookkeeping, they have some reoccurring, right? And that person is still on their books. And then we just reconcile. A lot of other businesses, when people don't pay them, they can just drop them as customers, right? Like, oh, as of this day, they are no longer our customer. We close the book. We give you that total amount due. Unfortunately, in property management, you don't have that kind of clear cut, way to move on. So it does make it sticky. But nothing provides a greater chance of somebody paying than increasing the incentive for them to do that, increasing the pressure. So is it always going to work? No. But to me, it's worth a shot. It's worth a shot for my team to try because we believe in the process. And I think it's worth for you to give a shot because if it doesn't work, you're not paying for it anyway. So if you've got people that owe you money and you're tired of chasing them down, let's give it a try. If you've got judgments that are old and you shelve them, let's give it a try. My team has skip tracing technology. We've got a way of finding people. We will give it a shot. As Karl said, we're a startup, right? We are working hard to prove ourselves in this industry. We are working hard to increase our book of business. We are not just going to shelve you and not make phone calls and not send letters. Yeah.
How important is it to have their social, date of birth, and or driver's license? I'm assuming the skip trace, you need their social first.
We don't need their social for a skip tracing, but it makes it a little bit harder to find them. If you have some sort of credit application that has that information on it, heck yeah, I want it, let's take it. But it hasn't stopped us in the past with other industries. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to think of what other industries that we do that we don't have that type of, definitely not for our funeral home, definitely not for our contractor and our plumber. So yeah, we've got.
I think most landlords
absolutely
do have it. I'm kind of more curious, like how important is that driver's license? Is that ever?
I would say.
Help with the process?
Yes, absolutely. The better starting point that we have, the faster that we can do our work and the greater likelihood that we have. I mean, if your tenant is still living in the house, we sure as heck know where they are. But if you have a license and a social security number, it's going to be easier for us to find them than anything else. Not impossible, but easier. But it goes back to what I said at the beginning. The more information that you can collect up front, the better it's going to be, right? Is this a home phone? Is this a cell phone? Is it textable? Is this an email? Do you consent to receiving emails? Are there other people that are guarantors or witnesses that were a part of this conversation that you've collected information on? It all becomes part of that book of evidence and book of leads that will help us find people. It's not a sure thing, but the more information that I have, the easier it's going to be for me. Am I going over, Carl?
No.
No?
You've got plenty of time.
Okay.
There are
Plenty of
two
time.
questions.
Yeah.
One is, are you able to locate people if we cannot find them? I'm assuming he's saying he's using skip tracing of some kind already.
Yeah, so we use a company called IDI. It's just a skip tracing company that we pay for. It's one of the tools that we use to find people. I don't know what this person's tools are that's asking the question. I mean, I can't make any guarantees. I never have, but we pay for extra information. It's part of our toolkit.
The other question he asked is the commission the same no matter what the amount is?
No, that's the short answer. No, it all depends on how much debt there is, how large that book of business is. It also depends on how old that debt is. So greater dollar value, lower commission, older debt, higher commission. So I can't really answer without knowing what it is that he or she has and that we're looking at, but I would say it's worth a conversation. Always. Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of people just want it easy. And so most of the clients that we work with, it falls in that 40%, not all. We've got a couple of larger institutions that pay less. So that is the end, Carl.
I have a couple
Yeah,
questions.
Absolutely.
A strong incentive would be discounting. If the client allows you to negotiate a discount, are you open to that?
If the client is willing to take a discount, we will use it. We don't force our clients to do it. It is very individual. It just goes back to, if you're going to discount for one, you've got to discount for all, because consistency is very important when it comes to protection. So if I call you and say, Carl, this person says they'll pay in full today if you take 10% off the bill, and you're like, yep. When I call you next week with another example with 10% off the bill, you got to say yes again. So consistency. Yeah. A lot of times people ask me, what happens if they call me to pay? If somebody is calling to make a payment, take the damn payment, right? Like, hey, wouldn't it be nice if you didn't have to do my work and say, hey, call Katie, I paid her to take your payment. But if somebody is going to provide some sort of form of payment, you want to take it. It means they did it because of me. It means that I get my commission from that because ultimately they resolved it due to my communication. But still, we want to take what we can. Not only do we want to take what we can, we want to provide the least bumpy road for our debtors. And that may mean being able to go back to the source and have a conversation. It may mean they can send a check. It may mean they can go onto my payment portal. Maybe it means they can clickety and make a payment. And so when I talk about living with this uniting collections, empathy, and technology, technology doesn't just mean living on the bleeding edge of technology. It means providing many options so that people can choose the path of their own choosing, right? The more barriers we break down, the greater their chances of resolving this debt and you getting your money. So we have all those. Yes. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Becca?
What about tenants who are in evictions, which you're obviously going to be very new to because the moratorium has ended before you, right? Before you started your business. So what does that look like? I mean, you know, I imagine if you work with landlords, property managers. Yeah. Our bigger numbers are going to be, if they're gone, well, okay, that's easy. But if they are evictions, do we know? Is there any legalities behind this? I'm just a little bit queasy with, you know, what's going on with the evictions in the courts right now.
Yeah, so legality, I can't speak to. As a matter of fact, I always say that in these presentations. I'm not a lawyer. I'm definitely not your lawyer. I own a collection agency. It's something that we should have a conversation with your legal team or mine. if there's a level of discomfort or a level of lack of knowledge. From an eviction standpoint, one of our property managers that we have some accounts for just called me last week and said, hey, remember that one I was bitching about when I was in your office a few weeks ago? Finally got them evicted. Now I'm going to send them over to you. That was his choice. It was his choice when we started the conversation to wait because he was in the middle of an eviction process. One of my other clients last month was just starting the eviction process. I shouldn't call her my client. She ultimately didn't come to me because she told me her lawyer advised her not to. And when I dug in deeper, I found out it's because the lawyer has the ability to do collections as well. So, you know, it's okay, right? That's okay. My feelings aren't hurt. You have an established relationship. And lawyers can absolutely help with collections. As a matter of fact, I have a lot of relationships with lawyers that do collections because they help me with that escalation process. And maybe because they had a great relationship, his fees are about the same as mine. Well, of course you would go with somebody you know well that has the same fees. I'm not saying I'm always the solution. I'm saying I'm worth looking into, and I'm probably going to be cheaper than your lawyer. And I'm going to have less pressure and less incentives. And I'm part of that escalation process, but I'm not bringing the hammer down. I'm not calling the superintendent of schools. I'm like calling the principal. Let's try me first.
Another question, Katie. You just collect, so you don't go through the process of garnishing wages.
Yep, we can go. So if we have judgments,
Okay.
we will find ways to get that money if it exists, right? And we have those tools at our fingertips to either garnish wages. We can do, you know, a bank. Oh, what the heck is the word? Tax returns. I don't know that answer to it. But if there's money that we can find through any sort of communication and inquisition, we will work with our team to take that.
And you have an attorney on your team to file the execution?
So we don't have an attorney on our team. We have attorneys that we collaborate with. If you don't have a legal team, we will use the ones that we work with. If you have your own, then we'll work together to hand it off and use him or her. Remember, we're just a small mom pop shop collection agency. We're not going to be that giant collection agency that has all of that lawyers and legalese on their team. But because of that, we have less overhead, and therefore our contingency rates are lower than you would typically find. And if not, you would be hard pressed to find someone to take you on for 20 or 30 grand in those giant agencies, unfortunately. Yeah, it's a huge gap. It's really unfortunate. You know, as a small business owner myself, starting a small business because I saw that gap. My partner, Chris, who's not here tonight, has been in the collection agency for about 20 years. He worked with some big names like Conserve or Coast Professional, big Rochester companies. His focus was on technology, regulations, process improvement. And when I was ready to leave the University of Rochester after 18 years, and I went to him and said, help me find a recruiter, he said, no, start a collection agency with me. And he convinced me that to be a great collection agency, you need two focuses. One is general knowledge and regulatory and IT and finance, but the other one is communications and relationships and trust and respect and rapport, all of the things that I focused on when I was a staff nurse and an IT project director. So, you know, I'm sure you all know people that have been in their profession for years and years and suddenly decide to make it on their own, right? Maybe they're a landscaper, maybe they're a plumber. And then you know people who said, I know there's a really good business out there and I can help people and I can change the perception. And that's really what I'm trying to do. I think we can change the perception. I don't think all debt collectors are jerks, and I don't think they're all sleazy. And I know that I'm not, because I'm a good person who's just raising a family in the same town that I grew up in. And I don't want to ruin my reputation. I'm guessing we're going to run into each other at Wegmans sometime or on the baseball field. And my reputation is important to me. I come from a very respected profession, and I chose the one that was probably least respected. And there's really a reason for that in my mind. There's a higher reason for me to be doing what I'm doing. So.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, this is my information. I left some little giveaways. There's some chocolate bars there and either a pen or a notepad. So you can take that chocolate home to your family. And it has my business card on it. a conversation is free. Honestly, I spend 20 minutes, half an hour talking to people all the time, giving them some ideas, letting them know when their ideas aren't going to work, ultimately convincing them that they have to do something. And if they can't do that something themselves, then I need to be the person who does that something for them, because time is of the essence. Okay.
Andy, can I share screen, please? I want to show Katie a form and get her comment on it. We have a local people that actually, buy judgments and they collect them.
Heck yeah.
And so this was advised from one of them on the application for a rental at the very bottom is that statement. And I'm going to update this little old here. I hereby authorize verification. This right here.
Gotta pull that up on the screen. Sure, I gave you the ability.
So that statement is telling me.
And or future collections. We put future in front of.
Verification of all information, including credit, any other information necessary. Okay, so you authorize verification. You're not agreeing to pay for the cost of collections. You're saying you can give my information to a collection agency as a verification of who I am. So yeah, that's important, right? That's part of that legalese to make sure that people know that they're giving their information for multiple purposes. It's for the perpetuity of the relationship or lack of payment in the future. That's not saying, if I don't pay you, you can use a collection agency and charge me more to recoup your fees.
I forgot to share a screen. So people on Zoom, what she's talking about is that bottom statement on your application to verify all the information for the tenancy and for future collections. Oh, it's up over here.
So stop your share.
You're in the wrong box.
Yep. And then hit share again. And you want to share your entire screen.
This here?
Yep. And there we go. Now
okay.
It's up.
There we go.
Remember, I used to work in adult training for IT. We went from a pilot of 2 trainings on Zoom to 200 classes on Zoom in 2 weeks when COVID hit, when I was working for the U of R. You ever heard of a little project called eRecord or MyChart? That's what I used to do before I owned a collection agency.
So it's good to have that in there.
I mean, I think it's good to have it in there from a, hey, I'm going to share your information with Katie when I need to.
Right.
That's not saying if you don't pay the rent and I send you to collections, you'll be paying more money than you owe me to cover that cost of collections. That's a little bit different. So it's the cost of collections is incurred by the debtor or whatever it is that your lawyer agrees to on your contracts.
Carl, what's this app? Is it the application?
Application for rental.
Yeah, that was the.
Yeah.
That's giving a consent to run a credit check, right? That's what that is. Credit application check.
No, we should have something that kind of outlines it, collecting judgments or on our leases. Right?
So once it becomes a judgment, I don't believe you can now collect more money for the cost of collecting that judgment. That I would have to look at. I'm talking about the cost of using a collection agency or some sort of legal, right? So let's say you take your person, you send it to a lawyer, right? You want him or her to send a demand letter. You want them to make phone calls. They're billing you, I don't know, $150, $200 an hour. You want to tack that on to how much somebody owes you. They pay for those legal fees to get you to pay money. I'm saying you also want to put in that contract that if you choose not to use legal, you choose to use somebody like me, the cost of collection fees are also passed on to that debtor, right? Cost of collections. Really the cost of any effort to collect this money from you if you choose not to pay it is incurred by you, right? You want them to know that no matter what you choose to do, they're going to pay for that extra time and money.
Now, if
Yeah.
You can't get wages garnished, things like that.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how many judges, even if we have the language, which I trust my legal ordered attorney fees, but not collection fees. But even if we had the language in there, how many judges or arbitrators or whatever are granting that, at least in the housing world? I don't expect you to necessarily know that.
I mean, I only know what my property management friends and, I told you about my father earlier who does it, has told me, and he says it's a hell of a thing to get a judgment in the city of Rochester.
Yes, exactly.
See, so it's well known even outside of your world.
Oh, well, yeah, fair enough. But so I'm just curious, like, have you seen, I mean, a good litmus test would be how many attorney's fees are in judgments. I personally haven't pursued a lot of judgments myself because my understanding is they're basically toilet paper. So it's just kind of something I don't feel like spending, half my day in small claims court dealing with it, blah, blah, blah. So I'm just wondering if you're seeing, at least in the housing world, like if these judgments are including that 40%. Because I think most small claims judges are just gonna be like, no, I'm not putting that.
I'd have to go back and look, but I would probably bet what you're saying, right? You can charge interest, but they're probably not going to have additional fees because of court fees and whatever. So if you don't have a judgment, what do you do when somebody doesn't pay? What tools are you using? What pressure do you apply?
Anybody? I have a series of letters that go out,
Okay.
pre-eviction letters in
Okay.
a series. They get a little bit firmer as you go.
Correct.
And then it ends up into a petition with court.
For an eviction.
Yep.
Which do they pay at the point of eviction?
Sometimes they do.
Okay.
Yep.
And then if they don't?
We may get a judgment or a warrant, or there might be a workout plan that's established that allows them time to pay. That happens quite often up there.
Okay.
So
you've got some other tools that are working if you can't get a judgment.
Yep.
Has anyone ever tried collections? Know anybody who has?
We do it every day, trying to collect rent from tenants. Okay. I mean, and we're failing bad.
Yeah. It's funny because nurses are the most respected profession in the United States. They are more highly respected than a police officer, a firefighter. But I grew up with my parents managing property. They were villainized. My parents raised 4 children and gave us a great, livelihood and childhood. And my father worked like a dog.
Yeah.
And but I learned something from that. I learned that industries should not be, blanket statements, and that when you work hard, it doesn't matter what you work hard doing. You deserve to get paid for that work. You entered a legal agreement, and so did they. And I think that it's a tough time to be a property manager. And I think it's always been a tough time, but I think it's tougher now with all this moratorium, everything with COVID. I was on the phone with this woman. I mean, she was just about near tears. She decided to sorry, Dee. All right. Oh, that's better. So she decided to invest some of her money into a property. She thought she was going to make some money, have that passive income. And from the moment the woman entered, she has not paid rent. It's been 2 years. And she is just, how the hell did I get myself into this? She can't wait to sell this damn property. And what a bad decision she made because somebody decided not to pay her. It's tough. All right. You know all those answers. You know what you're going through. If you ever have any questions, even if you want to talk, not shop, if you want to talk about something other than property management, we talk to people all the time. We work on personal loans as well. So there's really no industry that we can't help.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you very much, Katie. We're going to take a couple minutes to see Katie out, and Carl will step up.
We're not going to kick you out.
I appreciate your time. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Okay, there you go.
Oh, this table.
Yeah, it's
My
God.
God.
Carl always has good news.
I'm going to go over here. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure about that. I have news. I'm not sure it's
Sit
good.
at your table. We can just move the camera.
No, we're good. All right. Bye, Katie. Man, look at this crowd in here. It's crazy. It's too loud. All right. We have a few things. So let's start with the most exciting thing, which is good news. Last week, as you all know, there's been a major push and orchestrated effort to kill this good cause eviction. Man, a lot went on. So we could thank the Rochester Housing Coalition. There's a core team that really went balls to the walls and pushed this and got a lot of communication into the council people, into the administration. Part of this was attributed to the Albany case, the lawsuit that's going on in Albany. They have good cause eviction. It's being played out in court on March 30th. There is a motion for summary judgment, and that lawsuit is what got over to the City of Rochester Corporation Council and basically read that and agreed with it. It's unlawful. It's going to cost us money. Do not pass this. And that letter went down to the council people. Let me just show you while I'm talking here. I got to share a screen, right? First. Hold on. Share screen. That coming up? Yep. If you want to jot down the case number, some names, those are the attorneys that put this whole thing together. And those are the arguments they've used, which are very, very solid. They're pretty confident that they're going to get this thing overturned. But anyways, it was a great win. There's still more work to go because if the Albany wins, that strikes down all the local good cause evictions. There's two other towns that have that, Poughkeepsie and Kingston. They're going to go away. So it's now up to the state to enact some kind of good cause eviction. There's been a bill in committee for the last 2-3 years on good cause eviction. So it's a state matter. It becomes a state matter. And the only way to fight that is to argue the federal unconstitutional provisions in it, which they argued here too. The taking that Article 5 and 14, Bill of Rights 5 and 14. So anybody want to see any more of this or up here? We'll get rid of that one. Okay. Any questions on good cause eviction? We killed it here. And we're moving on to our next fight. Don't know what that is yet, but actually I do know what that is. Let me show you what's going on. All right. What's going on up in court? So the eviction court right now, it's loaded, 40 cases a day. Most of the cases are getting adjourned because of the applying for rent provision of the state law. And we got a problem with that. So what it is, it all begins with, anybody get this letter in the mail? This is from the New York State OTDA, whereby a tenant applied with EREP at the state, and that's the letter you get it from as a landlord. Anybody see those? No? How about on Zoom? Anybody see those? I'll get rid of that. Whoops. All right. Here's where this all came from. April 2021, in the budget, state budget, they put in emergency rental assistance program. It began there. And there was a section right on there. Restrictions on evictions. And if you look at that, eviction proceedings for a holdover, by the way, it's for all three cases, not payment, holdover, and non-renewal. And read what it says. We can't commence an eviction if we know that they've applied for rental relief at the state or local level. And if there's an eviction commenced, then there must be a stay pending a determination of eligibility. Our judges our hands are tied. They can't get around that. And so here's our problem. We have, oh, here's our problem. That expires. Look at the date. Yeah. If apply for rent, determination, they got, when's that end? 2 years. They could stretch this out for a long time. So that's going to be our next fight. That can't happen. There's a point of reasonableness here. There's got to be some way that we can deal with this problem. But and I called the OTD today, and they said, ask the guy, how much time does a tenant have to complete their application for determination? He goes, we reach out to them once every 60 days, 3 times, 180 days, 6 months. So yeah, that's what we're up against. But let me show you something else. Anybody been to court and ran into that? No, not yet. Not going to court at all. Which one do I?
I guess the next question, if I can interrupt.
Yeah.
Have they been refunded?
What's that?
Is there more funding?
Oh, good question. No, the New York State's out of funding. The state is out of funding. We have local funding still in play. We have about 5 million still in play. Those right now are being reserved for only cases that have a court date and an index number. So those are the ones up in court. No more open to the public. 211 is about to be phased out. No more 211 soon, I've been told. The 2 main players are still in play. The Catholic Family Center has one going pretty good, and the DHS is handling the EPI money. All the little agencies still have some funds. Most of them, some do not. Baden Street, Charles Settlement House, Montgomery, Villa of Hope. You know, so there's smaller agencies that still have money too. Let me. You've heard the word ERAP. You've heard the word EPI, right? Everybody, Zoom. Do you know the difference?
County, Monroe County, where ERAP is New York State.
Thank you very much. But everybody, you know, shoots out ERAP and they think it's the local stuff. By the way, it's the same thing, ERAP and EPI. So what happened was the federal money went to the state called ERAP. Certain towns opted out of that. They wanted to manage their own money, right? So the federal money came to our town. They put the name EPI on that. I think that meant Emergency Pilot Payment Initiative, something like that, EPI. So they picked that word here, even though it's still ERAP funds. So they're one and the same. So EPI's here, state's over there. I keep hearing people say, hey, they applied for ERAP. You mean with the state? No, with the county. It's ERAP, but we want, so it's local ERAP or EPI, or just ERAP is New York State. That clarify it a little bit? So they must apply and get to a determination with New York State, which, by the way, they're applying. I got tenants applying to New York State, even though they can't because Monroe County opted in, but they're applying. The legal aid, you know, the tenant attorneys look at that as applying, but they understand what we're talking about, and they're actually moving them over to local applications and really not looking at that. But if they apply for ERAP, state ERAP, it's still in effect that they have to, it goes on to a state, but there's one problem. Actually, not a problem. It might be in our favor. I'm waiting for, I'm waiting for some attorney to really step up and get a judge to rule on this. In their website, filing ERAP portal applications will be denied. That's a determination, right? We don't have to wait for that 180 days. It's going to be denied because Monroe County is one of the ones listed. It's right in there. I'm waiting for a case like this because I will appeal it. I will appeal it right up to the appellate using Jamie Kane. All right. Any questions? Yeah, 211's not closed yet, but when from 211 you're assigned an agency. Becky, you've been through a couple, right? And so, and there you have your connection. You have a person working on your case. So you can communicate that way.
You never call 211 for status update.
Oh yeah, they won't give you one.
They wouldn't know. They're there for they were considered as well as single point of access, single point of entry, and then they would farm you out. I mean, Abby was, for the lion's share of mine at least, they were all handled through PCHO Providence. I had a few that were like, I had like a Maiden Street here and there. I had, Swan, a couple like small little community plays, a couple small little ones, but Abby was administered through Providence, PCHO, whatever they want to call themselves, how they split, how they merged, I don't know. But
yeah. But right now, the sad part about it, this whole thing is this right here. It's very narrow. It doesn't talk about, the application process, time-wise, and what they're doing up in court. I was just up there today. They got the table right next door, client, tenant, attorney, sign there, going to court. We've applied. See you in 2 months. By the way, they're out late May now. Yeah, you file new cases, you're in late May right now. I filed from the point you give your information to your attorney to, have you filed yet, Becky? Any?
Yes. I think I have.
From the point I gave my papers to the attorney to my court date was 2 months. It was 2 months time, 2 months time, just to get a court date. April 15th. Isn't that tax day? Oh, good, lovely. Any questions? Anybody on Zoom, Andy?
Questions on Zoom at the moment?
So, Judge Morris she's pretty good. She's part of the housing court part, and she's getting a little frustrated with this. And for example, I'll tell you today a case. Nick Raglia had it, and he did pretty good. It was good. He hasn't paid since June of 2020. Had many cases up until today, right? Back in November, he was in court back in November with an attorney, tenant attorney. And here we are today, what, March, whatever. Went out to the table. Your Honor, we just applied. She went off on him. You mean it? She gave him a lip because of what just happened. Goes, no. You had 5 months to apply, and now you're applying now.
What'd she do?
Well, she
still adjourned it.
yeah, had to. Had to. And but Nick was good. It was adjourned to May, or June, I think it was. Yeah, June. Wait, May. No, May, late May. And Nick goes, Your Honor, we have April and May. I'd like for you to order this guy to pay April and May. And she goes to him, sir, are you working? No. SSI? No, it's pending. How you living? I live with people, you know, odd jobs. Basically, I have nothing. Nick, I can't do nothing. See you.
I think we lost him.
Thinking you're right. Wonder if they know that. Wonder if they know that they lost us.
I'll ask Andy right now.
Yeah, I wanted to hear that story too.
Yeah, I was just getting ready for that story too. Right at the end, I thought my computer froze. I was like, what's going on?
No, I was like, yeah. If we had known, we would have been there in person tonight. Give it a couple more minutes, and then after that, I don't know.
Oh, he said the laptop died. Meeting over.
All right. Everybody have a great night.
All right. You sure you don't want to continue the meeting, Joe?
I'm done. I'm out. I'll see you guys later. I got work to do.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Okay, everybody have a good evening. Out.
Yes, so see. Oh boy, that payback by more than a bitch. Let's stop around say. Suspicious, Dad. $1 million. Last touching thing until your work is here. Victims member of the coaching staff.